Long ago, in a small Igbo town surrounded by thick forests and fertile farmland, there lived a people who believed that doing the right thing was more valuable than wealth. The town was called Amandi. In Amandi, children were taught from a young age not to steal, not to lie, and never to harm another person. Food was especially sacred. When a person prepared food for another, it was believed that they were placing a part of their heart into that meal. So poisoning someone's food was considered one of the greatest crimes a person could commit. But Amandi had an ancient way of dealing with such accusations. Beyond the village, beneath enormous trees and surrounded by thick forest, stood a mysterious cave. The people called it the Cave of Judgment. According to the elders, the spirits of the ancestors guarded the cave. Whenever someone was accused of poisoning another person's food, the accused was taken to the cave. The person would enter alone. If they returned unharmed, they were declared innocent. But if the cave judged them guilty, they would emerge with blood upon their body and mysterious lion claws. Anyone judged guilty by the cave would be rejected by the people and banished from Amandi. For generations, nobody had dared to challenge the judgment of the cave. And for more than 30 years, the man responsible for guarding it was an old man named Oku. Oku knew the cave better than anyone. He knew its paths. He knew its stones. He knew the sounds that came from its darkness. Whenever villagers asked him about the cave, he always gave them the same answer. The cave does not listen to money. It does not listen to friendship. It listens only to truth. The people believed him, but they did not know that one day Oku would be the very man who would betray that truth. Among the people of Amandi was a successful trader named Ikena. Ikena was respected by almost everyone. He was generous. He helped farmers when their harvests failed. He gave food to widows. He helped struggling families pay their children's school fees. Whenever he walked through the market, people greeted him with smiles. "Welcome, Ikena. Our brother. May your wealth continue to grow." Ikena smiled and greeted them warmly. But behind that friendly face was a man whose hunger for wealth had already begun to consume him. And there was one particular piece of land that had caught his attention. The land belonged to a respected farmer named Ezeji. Ezeji was Amaka's husband. His farmland was among the most fertile in Amandi. His father had farmed it. His grandfather had farmed it. And Ezeji had inherited it for his own children. Every harvest, the land produced enough food to feed his family and help other people in the village. To Ezeji, it was not simply farmland. It was his family's inheritance. One afternoon, Ikena stood at the edge of Ezeji's farm. But he wasn't looking at the crops. He was looking at the possibilities. For years, Ikena had dreamed of becoming one of the most powerful men in Amandi, and Ezeji's land could help him achieve that dream. Ikena had also heard an old secret. Beneath part of the farmland was a rich deposit of fine clay, the same clay that Amandi's potters had used for generations. If Ikena controlled the land, he could control the clay. And if he controlled the clay, he could control an important part of the town's trade. Suddenly, Ezeji's farm was worth far more than anyone realized. So Ikena approached him. "I want to buy part of your land," Ikena said. Ezeji laughed. "Buy my father's land? I'm offering you more money than this farm will produce in 10 years. Ezeji shook his head. "My father's land is not merchandise." Ikena smiled. "You should think carefully." Ezeji looked him directly in the eyes. "I already have." Ikena returned a few days later. "This land can make both of us wealthy." "I don't want your wealth," Ezeji replied. "You could build a bigger house. My children already have a home. You could become one of the richest men in Amandi." Ezeji shook his head. "My father's land is not for sale." Something changed in Ikena's expression. His smile disappeared. "You may regret saying that." Ezeji stood his ground. If my refusal makes me your enemy, then let me be your enemy." Neither man noticed that someone was listening. Obina, Amaka's younger brother, had been passing nearby. He heard everything. He saw the anger in Ikena's face, and he remembered his words. "You may regret saying that." At the time, Obina thought it was nothing more than a bitter argument between two men. He did not know those words would later become one of the most important clues in Amandi. That night, Ikena met secretly with the Bitter Hand. The Bitter Hand was a secret group of people who believed they could decide who deserved to live and who deserved to die. They did not fight their enemies openly. They used food. They poisoned meals. Then they watched their victims disappear. Ikena told them about Ezeji. "He refuses to sell his land." One of the men asked, "Then what will you do?" Ikena stared into the fire. "There are many ways to make a stubborn man leave his land." The men became silent. Ikena continued, "Some people only need to disappear." A few days later, Ikena appeared at Ezeji's home. He carried food. Amaka welcomed him. "You came at the right time," she said. Ikena smiled. "I brought something special for Ezeji." Ezeji looked at him suspiciously. "You are suddenly being kind?" Ikena laughed. "Must every visit between brothers have a reason?" Ezeji said nothing, but Obina happened to be nearby again, and he noticed something strange. Ikena kept watching Ezeji. That evening, Ezeji ate with his family. Amaka served the meal. Ikena stayed for a while. He laughed. He talked. He behaved as though nothing was wrong. Then he left. Hours later, Ezeji suddenly became seriously ill. Amaka screamed for help. Her family rushed around him, but nothing could save him. By morning, Ezeji was dead. Amandi was devastated. The people mourned the respected farmer, but Obina could not forget what he had seen. He remembered the arguments. He remembered Ikena's threat. He remembered the farmland, and he remembered the food Ikena had brought. Then Obina discovered something else. The document proving Ezeji's ownership of the ancestral farmland was missing. He searched through the family's belongings. Nothing. The document was gone. Obina sat quietly that night, putting everything together. Ikena wanted the land. Ezeji had refused. Ikena had threatened him. Ikena had brought his final meal, and now the document protecting the land had disappeared. Obina did not know exactly how Ezeji had died, but he knew Ikena had a motive. He knew Ikena had an opportunity, and he knew something was terribly wrong. The next morning, Obina confronted Ikena. "You wanted Ezeji's land." Ikena looked at him. "Be careful. You threatened him." "I want him." "You brought his final meal." Ikena stepped closer. "Are you accusing me?" Obina did not move. "I'm saying that everything points toward you." Ikena smiled coldly. "Then take your accusation to the elders." And Obina did exactly that. He stood before Chief Ease and the council. "I do not know exactly how Ezeji was killed," Obina said, "but I know Ikena wanted his land. I know they argued. I know Ikena threatened him. I know Ikena brought the final meal. And now the document protecting that land has disappeared." The elders looked at one another. Chief Ease turned toward Ikena. "Do you deny all of this?" Ikena stood calmly. "I deny that I killed him." Obina looked at him. "Then prove your innocence." The entire council square became silent. Everyone knew what those words meant. The cave of judgment. The elders decided that Ikena would face the cave, but there was something the people did not know. Before the judgment, Ikena went to Oku. Oku was sitting outside the cave when Ikena arrived. Ikena placed a small leather pouch on the ground. Oku looked at it. "You know what this means?" "I do," Ikena replied. The cave must judge you honestly. Ikena smiled. Does it? Oku looked at the pouch again. Inside was enough gold to change his life, enough to repair his home, enough to live comfortably for the rest of his days. Oku knew the law. He knew the truth. But greed whispered louder. His hand slowly reached for the pouch. May the ancestors forgive me, he whispered. Ikena smiled. They will. Neither man understood that the ancestors were already watching. The following morning, the entire town gathered at the Cave of Judgment. Chief Eze raised his staff. Ikena, you will enter alone. Ikena nodded. Oku opened the cave. Ikena stepped into the darkness. The cave swallowed him. The villagers waited. 1 hour passed, then another. Nobody spoke. Finally, footsteps echoed from the darkness. Ikena emerged. The crowd gasped. There was no blood, no wound, no lion claw, nothing. Chief Eze examined him carefully. He found nothing. Ikena raised his arms. Did I not tell you? The elders looked at one another. Then the verdict came. Ikena is innocent. The people erupted. Some praised him. Some apologized to him. And some turned toward Obinna with anger. Ikena looked directly at Obinna. You accused me. Obinna tried to speak. I only wanted justice. But Chief Eze raised his hand. Your accusation was false. Obinna's heart sank. The elders declared that he had tried to destroy the reputation of an innocent man. He was banished from Amandi. Amaka cried as her brother prepared to leave. At the edge of the village, she whispered, I know you didn't lie. Obinna looked at her. Truth does not become false because people refuse to see it. Then he walked into the forest. After Obinna's banishment, Ikena's reputation became even greater. People trusted him more than ever. They called him an honest man, a good man, a man who had survived the Cave of Judgment. But while the people praised him, Ikena's secret remained buried, and Oku began enjoying the wealth he had received. His house became larger, his clothes became finer, his meals became better, but his heart became heavier. One afternoon, Elder Nwando visited him. She looked around his new home. Then she looked at Oku. Oku? Yes? Why does a wealthy man look so poor? Oku lowered his eyes. He had no answer. That night, Oku dreamed. He stood before the Cave of Judgment. A giant lion emerged from the darkness. It stared directly into his eyes. Then it spoke. You sold judgment. Oku turned and ran, but the lion followed. He woke screaming. His body was trembling. But instead of confessing, Oku convinced himself that it was only a dream. Then strange things began happening in Amandi. The sacred river changed direction. Animals avoided the cave. The ancient tree beside it began losing its leaves, and every night a lion roared from the forest. But there were no lions anywhere near Amandi. The elders gathered beneath the dying tree. Elder Nwando looked toward the forest. The gods are asking us a question, she whispered. What did we do with justice? Nobody answered, because everyone was beginning to remember Obinna. They remembered the accusation. They remembered the cave. And they remembered how quickly they had believed the judgment without questioning it. Oku could no longer carry his secret. He went to the council. He fell to his knees before Chief Eze. I lied. Chief Eze stared at him. What did you say? Oku's voice trembled. I took gold from Ikena. Silence filled the room. I changed the judgment of the cave. Chief Eze's face hardened. You condemned an innocent man? Oku lowered his head. No. He took a deep breath. I condemned the truth. The confession spread throughout Amandi. Ikena was guilty. Obinna was innocent. Oku had betrayed the entire town. The people were stunned. Some cried. Some became angry. Others simply stood in silence. For the first time, everyone understood that justice had not failed them. They had failed justice. That night, the sky turned black. Thunder shook Amandi. Lightning struck the ancient tree beside the cave. The wind screamed through the village. Oku ran toward the cave. Then he heard the voice again. "You sold judgment." Oku fell to his knees. The earth trembled beneath him. The darkness of the cave seemed to open before him. And Oku finally understood. The gold had bought his comfort, but it had also purchased his downfall. Meanwhile, Ikenna fled into the forest. He ran until his legs could no longer carry him. Then he stopped. Before him stood the Cave of Judgment, the same cave that had declared him innocent, the same cave he had deceived. Ikenna fell to his knees. "No!" Then came the roar. The next morning, Ikenna returned to Amandi, but he was no longer the same man. His eyes were vacant. His speech was broken. He wandered through the market asking the same question again and again. "Where is the cave? Where is the cave?" The people who once praised him now stepped away. The man who had deceived everyone had lost himself. Days later, Obinna returned to Amandi. The elders met him at the entrance. Chief Eze stepped forward. "We wronged you." Obinna looked at him. "You did. We believed a lie." "Yes." Chief Eze lowered his head. "Can you forgive us?" Obinna remained silent for a moment. Then he answered, "Forgiveness is possible, but justice must also change." The people gathered in the village square. Obinna stood before them. "No person will ever again be condemned by one man's word. Evidence must be examined. Witnesses must be heard. And those who guard justice must never be allowed to sell it." Elder Nwando nodded. A sacred cave cannot replace an honest heart. The people agreed. Years passed. The Cave of Judgment remained where it had always been. But the people no longer used it as a weapon against one another. They respected it, they feared it, but they understood its lesson. A ritual cannot replace truth. A powerful person cannot purchase justice forever. And a lie cannot hide from the gods forever. The story of Amandi was passed from one generation to another. The elders told the people about Ikenna. They told them about Oku. They told them about Obinna. They told them about Ezeji, the farmer whose land became the reason for a terrible betrayal. And they reminded everyone of the price of betraying truth. Ikenna had escaped judgment for a time, but he could not escape himself. Oku had accepted gold, but lost everything that gold could never replace. And Obinna learned that truth may be buried, but it does not remain buried forever. Every evening when the people of Amandi gathered around the village fire, the elders ended the story with the same words: "Never sell the truth, never condemn the innocent, and never believe that the gods are asleep. Because they are watching, always."